you will now notice it lets you know, and you have to accept. So you'll have to hit that accept button so that you're now well and truly in the meeting and you're being recorded. Guys, can I also check that you can see my screen?
Yes.
Yep, sure.
Perfect. Brilliant. Well, in that case, we're off. Let's go. Guys, we have the next 3 hours together. So we're together until 5. We will take a couple of breaks. I know Alan has another commitment this afternoon, an important customer commitment, so he's going to have to duck out at some point, have that meeting, and then he'll rejoin us. So thank you, Alan, for letting me know in advance. I appreciate it. And obviously, Roger's got to go in about an hour, and Elisa, whenever you need to go, that's fine as well. So no problem at all. So let's continue our journey. What we've been doing, as you know, over the last 3 sessions, and this is session 4, is looking at our consultative selling process and really understanding how we blend that in the real and the remote world, this hybrid world that we know is evolving as we move forward. Now, we've covered a lot of content, and we will do a quick recap. Today's session, outcomes for today's session, are that we're going to always revisit our proven Inspire sales process. That consultative selling model is really important for us. So we're going to continue to revisit that so that we continue to be familiarized with it. We're going to look today at the final 3 stages of the process. So how we gain commitment from customers every time, how we then handle objections when they come up. So we've got a structure for handling objections pretty effectively. We're going to look at how we prepare for and handle negotiations when they come up. And then we're going to look at the final stage of our process, is how we reflect and continually improve ourselves personally and professionally, and how that links to improved performance. Okay? And then beyond today, how you put all of that into practice outside of the workshops and support each other to do that beyond just our training session. So we'll reset with our contracting. So just a reminder to put any digital devices or distractions that might get in the way of your learning, just put those on hold now, silence any devices, put away any email if you don't need to be checking it. As you also know, everything we talk about in these sessions is confidential among this group. So any specific customer discussions, anything that comes up, it stays among our group and doesn't leave kind of these virtual meetings, as it were. As we go along, if questions come up or if you've got comments on things, just unmute yourself, give me a shout, and we will address those as we go along. You don't have to wait for questions. And you guys know that we're now in a pretty safe zone. We've got a really tight team here. So any questions, any comments that you do want to raise, just feel free to do that. We are in a completely safe environment. I have my car park pad in front of me. So anything that comes up that we might need to just capture, assign an action to and park, we can do that, which means we'll stay on track for the course of our session. And we will be using breakout rooms. So we'll be putting into breakout rooms in probably the first 5 or 10 minutes, as we do with each of the workshops. So there'll be an opportunity to make it interactive, talk with your accountability partners, and really get into the meat and bones of application. And then finally, I said already, we will take at least 1 break. So we'll either break halfway through, or we might take a couple of micro breaks, depending on the energy and what we think we need as we go through the session. If you have your notepads or electronic pads, whatever it is you use to capture notes, remember the important piece here is take key takeaways. As we're going through each of these topics, you'll know this by now, there are things that resonate specifically for you. You'll be thinking about specific customers, specific opportunities, specific discussions, meetings, things that are coming up. Capture as we go through the principles, right? That means this for me, my key takeaway and action is, and that's how we capture it, so it's most impactful personally. And as you also know, we've been working in really good accountability partnerships as we've gone through our program. I would like to say, I'd like to encourage you, to do that beyond the workshops. We've been doing it between the workshops. I'd love for you to take this principle and apply it outside of our workshops. So Jamie with Alan, Barry and Maggie, and Will and Kelly, just create this support mechanism for each other to specifically think about how you continually elevate and improve your sales and leadership performance. So I'll invite you to do that, and we'll check in at the end of today's session and just make sure that you've got the support you need to do it. In those sessions, and certainly from today's discussion, think about What are the ongoing actions and improvements you need to make? How will you help each other to continue to develop and grow beyond the workshops? And then how often are you going to do that with each other? How often will you review? What will that look like? And I'm going to bring you back to this. This will be the last slide we cover in today's session to remind you that this is kind of advanced warning, thinking beyond the workshops, because that's where the real value is going to be for all of us. And every 3 weeks when we check in, I've also been reminding you of this. So right in our first session, we asked this question. Everybody went around the room and said, what do you love most about your role? Why is it vital that you succeed? Remember why we did that. Every time we get together, every time we got together, I'm just checking back in. This is about your own intrinsic motivation to do great work for the organization and succeed in your role. It's so important. It's a key factor in high performance is how we feel about our work, how we feel about succeeding, and how we then transmit that to people either that we work with or clients that we're engaging. Really important just to reconnect with that on a regular basis. You have your scorecards, which we started the program with. So you have this scorecard report, which created our baseline. In a month from now, I will invite you all through Tim to take the scorecard again. And what that will enable us to do is have a couple of comparisons. So you'll say, going into the program, these are the scores based on the 5 key areas. And after the program, here's where we got to. We'll be able to measure that improvement in terms of how you feel about your ability to consultatively sell in this hybrid environment. So we'll do that in a month's time. This is, again, a bit of advance notice. This is what we'll be doing a month from now. So, to our recap, this is where we've been. It might be useful for Roger and Elisa as well, because this will kind of give you a sense of where we've been over the last 3 sessions, although Roger was with us for the first one. So we started with mindset and, positive psychology principles, priming ourselves, building good self-confidence and self-belief is really important as part of our role in any business, but specifically in sales. So we start with positive psychology and mindset. Once we feel good about ourselves and we feel confident to engage with customers, then we have to do the right preparation. And you remember our simple 4-blocker model, and you've all completed a key account plan using this model. This was about taking the most impactful principles, the most impactful areas that we can research our customers, and then using that to deploy a plan to our key accounts. And once that plan's in place, it arms us with some really powerful insights and information that enable us to connect with customers and create really powerful reasons why they should see us. And remember, this is so important. We should always have a reason why for the customer to see us. It's not about us. It's not about Blink. It's not about our portfolio. It's about what we can generate for the customer. And once that customer meeting's in place, every single time, we then use our Inspire sales process. And once we start the process, we remember there is right at the heart of the model is the relationship we have with the client. We looked at that through 2 lenses. We said there are established relationships where we need to either further strengthen those relationships or we need to leverage those relationships. And sometimes we'll do a bit of both, but it is about understanding the dynamics of that relationship, the emotional bank account, and how we leverage it for existing customers. Then we said the second lens to look at relationship was about rapport and how we establish quick, deep, and meaningful relationships with new potential customers. We do that through an intentional approach using rapport. So once that relationship's established, once rapport's established, we're connected with the customer, that's when the sales process starts. We don't start the process until the connection is made. And so the connection's made. Our first step then is using the insights and the information from our Prepare To plan. We start the sales process with an impact statement, a statement that disrupts the way the customer sees the world, that disrupts the way they think about our portfolio, our position in the industry, and disrupts the way they think about the way they do their work. And what that does is, we know it establishes credibility, establishes authority, and that enables us and invites us to continue through the process. The next step is to then go to a needs discovery stage. So we don't start pitching the company at this point. We've got the customer interested. We don't pitch from here. We then establish what are the needs the customer has. And we do that through listening carefully, actively listening, repeating key things that the customer tells us, and then summarizing at the end. But most importantly, we ask really good quality questions. Okay, so quality questions are what drives the needs from the customer. Once the customer's needs are fully understood, then we start to talk about a solution, but not until we understand the needs. So the solution then is positioned in a way that matches the customer's needs and takes us through this structure that we covered in the last session, which was feature, advantage, benefit, understanding the differences between those three elements of our proposition, and then linking them back to the customer's needs. So we create this solution loop we talked about, okay? So we have the solution loop, the customer's engaged, and we talked about how, so last month we also said, right, well, we're doing this in a hybrid environment. We have to be able to work virtually as well. So we covered the virtual best practice principles for selling and influencing customers remotely and on Teams, on Zoom, and on the virtual environment. And today we're going to look at the rest of the process. So we're going to be moving to proposal, making a proposal and getting agreement from the customer that that proposal will work for them and work for us. Okay, so it's all about how we handle the proposal, gain commitment, and when we gain commitment, very often that's going to trigger objections. So today we're going to look at how we handle those objections, really simple structure for handling objections. And once we've got commitment, we also may find that in that process we end up negotiating, and negotiations can be uncomfortable. So we're going to look at how we manage negotiations more effectively. That's going to help us to lead into a position of immediacy and urgency. This is about how we try and shorten and compress the sales cycle as much as possible so the customer stays on board, they're really clear on their actions. And in that final stage, we also want to start testing the water for referrals, testimonials, other things that are valuable for us that the customer can give to us as part of that process. And then finally, we'll look at reflection and personal development. So that's today's session from proposal onwards as part of our final closing part of the sales process. And as you know, you guys are using your own pipeline stages. We've got really good alignment between the work we're doing and the stages in your pipeline. Remember, this doesn't replace your pipeline, it complements it. So remember your stages, remember there's an important role here in CRM and communication across the business, and ensuring that the pipeline figures are accurate so that the business then can forecast more accurately, meet the demands of you and your clients as well. Okay, so we're going to do an action review. So I'm going to invite you into your breakout rooms and your breakout with your partners, because you will have had some conversations, but I just want to give you the opportunity to go back to some fundamentals. From our last session, the things we specifically talked about were remote selling improvements, the way that you handle remote meetings. I'd love you to share with each other, what have you done differently? How have you been adopting the principles? Then we talked about these FABSOL, the feature, advantage, benefit, solution, and the key points for your priority portfolio and how you position that differently with your customers from here on in. And then there was a final action we talked about, you may remember, which was, now that you understand how the portfolio should be positioned with a customer and how it meets a need, that informs the questions that you ask. So we go back and revisit our questions and just double check that the question I'm asking elicits the need that I know the customer will have based on the benefit of the product, the advantage that offers, and the feature of the product. Does that make sense? So we were closing the loop on all of this, all of the work we've done to date. Okay, is that making sense to everybody?
Yep.
Yeah, just to say, Justin, we did that in groups of 3, didn't we? So we did that. Will we be breaking out into those 3 that we did that in? Remember, we did our FABSOL. We did it in 3, didn't we?
You did, didn't you? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Good idea. Thank you, Will. Very good idea. Yes, we will.
Don't worry about it.
Can you remind me, Will, of your groups?
I forgot that bit. No, I got that. It was Me, Kelly, and Maggie, and Barry, Alan, and Jamie, I believe. And then they had to do a Baron Fabsol, and we had to do a customized pack Fabsol.
Okay.
Yeah, I am listening, Justin.
Well, Will, I'm impressed.
You peaked too early, Will. You peaked too early, Will.
I tattooed on it on my arm. I tattooed on it earlier.
You've had your Weetabix today. You've had your Weetabix today, Will, haven't you?
I know.
Let me just, so I've just created those rooms. Thank you, Will. Great reminder. Would Roger, Elisa, and Tim like to join any of the rooms? Would you like to go into any of those rooms, or do you want to stay here with me?
I think I'd like to sit in a room and see what they're chatting about.
Yeah, great. Same to you, Roger. Great. Okay, guys, congratulations. Hold on. Let me just add Elisa and in fact, let me open the rooms and then I'll put Roger and Elisa into one of the rooms. That's better. Okay. You've got 10 minutes on this, guys. Okay, 10 minutes to talk about this and then come back. So I'll give you a 10-minute, I'll give you a halfway walk. 10 minutes. Okay.
Okay.
Good. Okay. Resume our recording. So I've got room one, or team one was Kelly, Maggie, and Will. Would you like to start us off with what you discussed, what you came up with?
Yeah, so we sort of looked at the Fabsol approach of selling and realized that by taking this approach, it really does highlight the solution to the client is obviously you start from this point, but by the end of the conversation, you really want to get to the actual solution to the client and realizing the importance of that's why we want to sell to that client. And I think by doing this approach, it does highlight that and make that a bit more sort of easier to understand.
Yeah, thanks, Will. And have you, in terms of the work that you did following last workshop 3 weeks ago, what's in the document? What did you learn about that? What are some of the kind of examples of that?
So an example, obviously, I mean, Kelly and Maggie, I feel like I'm if you want to crack on, you speak up by all means.
No, you carry on. Well, from my side, it's more when the inquiries come through and doing everything in a timely manner and getting it across to the rep with all the information as soon as possible. So that's from my side as an internal process.
Yeah.
But I think what we did is obviously one of our examples last week for obviously the custom pack side of things and using that Fabsol approach. I think what we sort of said is a feature obviously for a custom pack would be the quality, the advantage is the reliability, consistency of instrumentation, the benefit would help to improve surgical outcome, and the solution to the client is surgeon satisfaction and patient outcome.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, nice structure. Thank you, Will. And let me remind you, Will, and everybody, of a principle we covered really, really early on. I think it was workshop 1. And remember this principle we talked about when we are building our reasons why for customers. When we're building our reasons why for customers, we say to them that it's not about what we do, it's about what other customers tell us is valuable. It's what other customers tell us is valuable, right? So when we're working through our Fabsol worksheets or our Fabsol structure with the customer, we can say feature, the product does this. That's an advantage because of this. It's a benefit to you because what you get is this. And that links back to what you said earlier you were looking for and actually other customers find really valuable. And by just using that structure, the customer gets reassured that they're not the only one that's going to get that benefit. They're following, another group of customers that are buying Blink products, getting the benefits. Just that kind of almost, there is a term called herd mentality. I don't like it, but it is about that reassurance we get that other people are doing this too. So we should go along with it. So remember that as a principle here as well. Very good. Thanks, Will. Anything else from your group before we go to group 2? And Maggie, anything that's on your mind?
No, I just love the principle. I feel that I follow it, and using it as well when you're already in an existing account.
Yeah.
To talk about other areas of the departments. It's just getting the structure correct.
Yeah.
I want to reach a point where I'm not actually thinking about it.
Yeah.
you don't want to over egg the custard, do you? You know, so I used this principle, but didn't realise I was using this principle. But maybe I used it in a different way. I don't know. But yeah, and certainly we discussed about the preparation for your online calls as well. Will and I have had a couple of meetings this week because we're isolating, and just being prepared and so on and so forth. But yeah, all very, very valuable. Thank you.
Good. Good, great, thanks, great feedback, Maggie. And as you were saying that, it reminded me about a few years ago, I did an advanced driving course, and I spent a day with a guy who was an ex police speed pursuit driver, and in the morning he told me all the things I was doing wrong when I was driving. And then he said, and then at lunchtime we stopped, and he said, right, here are the changes I want you to make in the afternoon. And you know, in the afternoon, it was as if I'd forgotten how to drive. It was unbelievable. I've been, you know, driving for 25 years, and then I was trying to change the way that I approach roundabouts. I changed the way that I changed gear.
We just driving over them.
Have you seen me driving, Will?
I think I have.
Justin, how long ago did you do yours?
About must be 8 years ago. But
yeah, I did mine about 25, 30 years ago.
So the point is, right, the point is that sometimes we do stuff on autopilot, and then when we go back and you say, actually, there's a structure here, like feature, advantage, benefit, solution, it might feel a little bit like awkward for a little while. But do persevere with it, Maggie, persevere with it, because you will find it'll become like a natural groove, and all of a sudden you'll do it without even thinking. Just keep going through it. Keep going through it.
Thank you.
Good. So group two, what did you guys discuss?
We went through our FabSol again about the balance refine, just going through the detail, just going over ensuring we had it right, everything was correct, in the right order. And I think for me, in the real world, I think it's just at the very basics, it's just kind of reminding myself that everything we sell, we can have this conversation about. You can take it back to the beginning, and you can really have much more in-depth conversations you probably thought you were initially going to go in and have. There is a whole lot more to talk about with every single product and with everything. So again, it's just a case of a lot of this is changing habits and just a bit of a culture change in how you do things normally, and remembering these things really.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, thanks, Jamie.
I think just a lot of it is, like you said, I mean, we've talked about it before, is realising the process that you automatically do sometimes, but breaking it down into and realising why you do that. And I think it's really beneficial to actually break down the stages, what you're doing, and then because you can also assess yourself then, have I done that in a way that I thought or what I planned to do it? Have I asked the questions that I planned to ask? Have I managed to ask all of the questions? Have I engaged the customer properly? And I think for that reason, going back and revisiting that and looking at the FabSol is really, really good to actually, as well as your customer, obviously, because it's all designed for your customer, but looking at yourself to actually make sure. The only reason you engage your customer is by using that process, you know. So. Yeah.
Thanks, Barry. It's a really good point, because this is one of the stages of the process, right? We're following a structure, and sometimes you can do this in a quick 15-minute meeting with somebody. You can go right way through the structure, 15 minutes. Other times you might be with someone for 90 minutes, maybe a couple of hours, where you're really digging deep into some of these areas because it's a really important account. It's a bigger opportunity. You want to invest the time in going a bit more. Kind of being more comprehensive with the customer so they follow you on every step. Really good. Yeah, thanks, Barry.
And I think this feeds in, doesn't it, to that whole thing of where you said to be the beginning of this process is the customer first, customer only sort of mentality. Because the end outcome of this whole FabSol is the customer, isn't it? When it's a solution to the clients, how it's going to help the customer.
That's the need, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you, thanks, Will. Good, another good point. You should remember how important you can only link in this FabSol process. You can only link to the need of the customer if you've asked them about it. You can only link to the need if they've told you because you've asked. So that's why the previous stage, the questioning, listening, summarising is so important. Great. Thanks everybody. Really good. Any other comments or thoughts before we go into the next stage of the process in today's session.
Good.
Good, excellent, great. Thanks, guys. You know, just from the discussions we're having, you're having, I know that you're getting this. So it's brilliant. It's brilliant to see, because from my point of view as a trainer and a coach, I'm not just interested in running the sessions. It's about you guys getting the value from it and adopting it. So thank you. I can get a really strong sense of that already. Brilliant. Perfect. Okay. So let's reconnect with our process. We have prepared for the meeting. We know why we're in the meeting. The customer knows why we're in the meeting. We start with the relationship, establish or re-establish rapport, depending on, you know, the nature of the customer. We then lead with insight and create impact right at the start. So it's a bit disruptive. It's a bit different for the customer. It feels different because we are constantly bringing them value at the start of the relationship. We then go to the needs discovery phase. We ask questions, we listen, we match all that stuff up. We say, okay, and then we summarize. Then we go through our solutions discussion. We talk about features, advantages, benefits. We link it to what the customers told us they need to make a solution loop. And we do that for every point that's relevant for the product that links to the needs the customer told us they had. Okay, so that's where we are in the process. And the next stage is proposal agreement. So let's just remember that once we've completed the solutions discussion, the reason we're here, right? The reason we're here, let's go back again, right? Parallel, so we've connected and impacted, we've discovered needs, with solutions being discussed. Now we have to summarize and gain agreement. Okay, that's where we are in the stage. And think about it like this. Love this quote. To complicate things is really simple. To simplify things can be quite complicated. So what we are able to do, what our job now at this stage of the process is just to bring the customer into a single point of kind of reference where we just go, we tie it all up and we go, yes, okay, so based on what we've discussed, sounds like these are the things that are important to you and that the product's going to meet those things or those priorities in this way. Would you agree that that's the case? And so we're summarizing and we're gaining agreement. Summarize and gain agreement. It's a really important step, this, because remember, we've given the customer some really interesting insights. We've asked them lots of questions. They might have gone off tangent a little bit at times. We've pulled all that back together and summarized the needs. Then we've talked about all the benefits of the product. And at this stage, to just really quickly summarize, would it be okay if I just summarize where we've got to? Especially if you're in a longer meeting. Would it be okay if I just summarize where we got to and you go, bang, 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 bang. Does that sound right? Have I covered everything? And the customer will either agree or they'll go, oh, we also talked about this. And you go, oh, yeah, of course, just note that. Okay? But we're gaining agreement. And this is important because we're gaining agreement at this stage because we want to get the customer into agreement mode. We want to get the customer saying, yes, oh, yeah, that's right. Yes, that's right. Yes, that's right. Because that's an important part of our process. And you'll also notice that as we go through our sales process, a bit like a funnel, we start with lots of open questions, high quality open questions. And now as we're coming towards proposal agreement, we want to start to funnel that down, and we will notice that the questions we ask from here on in are largely closed questions. And that's because we are now at a point where we want a yes or a no. So we're moving towards the yes or no stage. Okay. So kind of the penultimate stage of our process with the customer. So we're almost ready to make a proposal, but first we check with the customer. I'm sure you'll have heard this phrase, trial close. Trial close. The reason it's called a trial close is because we're asking the customer, we're basically looking for a signal. And that signal is, are they going to say yes or no when I try and actually close? Okay, so will they say yes or no when I actually close? And so here's how it goes. Just a really conversational. This is really simple. So it might be something like, is there anything else we need to cover before we move to discuss a proposal? Okay, so you do your summary. Once the summary, you say, does that sound right? Yes. Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, thanks, Will. That sounds good. Okay, great. So is there anything else we need to cover before we move to discuss a proposal? That's how it just flows from one to the other almost seamlessly. Because once you've summarized, you've now invited, the customer's invited you, through agreeing that the summary was right, for you to trial close. So that's one option. The other might be, can I check we've covered everything you need and that you're ready to discuss a proposal? You can say, is that okay? You don't need the, is that okay even, okay? Or something like, if we were to move forward and I make a proposal, do you have everything you need to make a decision today? Really simple. You can see it's just it's almost conversational, because at that point the customer should agree, but if they don't agree, we're going to tell you how to handle that as well, right? So they should agree at that point. Nice and conversational. So we're summarized, we've got their agreement, then we trial close. Okay, summarized agreement, trial close. Okay. Now the customer may say no. Once in a blue moon it happens, right? Once in a blue moon that happens. So if the customer says no, instead of pitching, which is what a lot of salespeople feel compelled to do, oh, well, let me tell you about this then, or let me tell you about that. Well, hold on a minute, it does this as well. Oh, no, let me tell you, we can absolutely match that, we can do this. It's not what the customer needs to hear. What the customer needs you to do if they say no is to apologize, empathize, and ask, oh, what else do we need to consider? Because everything that's caused them to say no is in their head. The only way to get it out is just to open them back up again. So we're just going to ask that, oh, sorry about that. What else do we need to consider? Really simple. And then whatever they tell you at that point, you address those concerns, or you bring up other needs. You might link the benefits of what you can offer to create a solution to match that need, and then try again. And you check again, and we continue until they are ready for us to offer them a proposal. Okay, that's the simple way round. Okay, and if the customer says yes, so if we're pressing on, then actually what we need to do is make sure that we're really clear about all of the details. And you'll know this piece. This is what you do day in, day out with customers, right? So you set out the stages of either a service offering or a conversion, or how you're going to handle the details. You might talk about quantities and volume breaks. You might talk about pricing, value versus what they're using today, and how you're going to equalize that. You might talk about timing and how long a contract would last. It might be a trial or an evaluation. You might talk about payment terms or payment options, depending on what sort of customer it is, whether they're a private customer or NHS customer. You might talk about additional items that they can look at in future, possible upgrades to the product set, maybe even what the frequency of some reporting or feedback or review cycles, or how you're going to handle that with them. So you might say, for the first month or so, I'm going to check in with you every couple of weeks. After that, we'll move to a monthly process, and I'll handle any additional training needs that you have with your teams on an ad hoc basis, but just be really clear on it. There might be a preferred partner, if it's through supply chain or one of the large distributors, but just kind of get all that in place. So at least you're clear, the customer's clear, and it meets their expectations. And remember this part, sometimes we can feel like we inadvertently rush this part. Remember, it's all part of the customer experience. So we want to make sure that this is clear. We don't rush it. We make sure the customer understands all the options, and we're agreeing that with them as part of the proposal. Now, that stuff's straightforward. There may well be bigger objections. So there may well be bigger objections. And I love this quote from Brian Tracy: treat objections as requests for more information. Treat objections as requests for more information. If the customer says no, or they say, oh, well, it's not as simple as that, or there's an issue, that all that is the customer requesting more information. Okay, so whenever you face an objection, it will be one of three things. Okay, it will be one of three things. It's either going to be a misunderstanding, or it's going to be skepticism, or it's going to be a genuine needs objection. Okay, so misunderstanding is where the customer's just got their wires crossed. They think it's one thing, it's actually another. And it may be that they think one part of the proposition is not quite right for them when actually it is. Simplest objection to handle. We'll do that in a second. Skepticism is when the customer's effectively saying, that sounds a bit too good to be true. I'm not sure that's going to work for me. Or I'm not sure I believe that's going to do everything you tell me. So skepticism is about belief and us having to help the customer realize what we've offered is actually the real deal. Okay. And then a genuine needs objection is when the customer wants something and we actually is not part of the package. So there is a real disconnect. You know, they want something, no, that's not part of this deal, or it's not part of what we offer. So we'll talk about how we handle each of those. But before we do that, some fundamentals. Whenever you meet a customer and you face an objection, firstly, don't agree. So if they say, well, I would, but, you know, I'm concerned about X, Y, and Z. Don't say, oh, I agree, you should be concerned. Because you've immediately undermined yourself, right? So don't agree. Second thing, don't disagree. So don't say, oh, no, that's wrong. Because you immediately flare a defense mechanism in the customer, right? So on one hand, you undermine yourself. On the other, you flare a defense mechanism. So the straight line down the middle is to acknowledge and understand their perspective. Acknowledge and understand, and they're the words we use. So okay, I understand. I'd like to understand that a bit more, right? Don't agree, don't disagree, understand. And at that point, we're going to stay neutral on whatever objection it is they've raised. We stay neutral and we remain objective. So we don't defend our position. We don't agree with theirs either. We stay neutral. And then we allow the customer to vent or expand with a bit of light questioning, just a bit of questioning. We'll cover that next. And then whatever happens, we always link back to their needs. We return to our system because our sales system is what helps us to overcome objections as well. So 3 objection types. Let's look at how we handle them. So we always do this. We always empathize and we want to clarify what it is they're objecting to, right? So we just say, what exactly is the concern? Okay, what exactly is the concern? And then they'll tell us. And when they're telling us, we're going to listen. We're going to understand what they tell us. And then we're just going to summarize. So actually what you're saying is, and we summarize it. And we summarize it until they say yes. And they say, yeah, that's it. That's my concern. Okay. And during that space, during them telling us what it is, us listening, understanding, okay, so what you're saying is you're concerned that, you know, perhaps not all the staff will adopt it. We're concerned that some people might resist the change. Okay. You're concerned about change and resistance in the teams. Okay. Okay. Right. In that space, you're acknowledging the customer, you're giving yourself time. You're giving yourself time to think about how I'm going to handle this, right? And you're also thinking, where does this fit? So first, if it is a misunderstanding, so if like simple misunderstandings happen all the time, where someone might think, oh, the product portfolio, well, I was going to use it for this indication and I can't. And actually they can. Really simple. So you just say, oh, okay. Well, you know, what exactly is the concern? Well, we get a lot of patients with this condition and I need a product that's going to use, I can use across all of them. Okay, so you want a product that is able to be used for that indication as well as all of the others we've discussed? Yes. Okay. Well, got some great news for you. Apologies, I hadn't been clear, but actually the product can be used in those indications. And we have many customers that use it for that indication very, very successfully. And then that should be enough to confirm to clarify the situation. You then just confirm it's clarified with the customer. So just confirm. So does that give you the reassurance that you were looking for? Okay. Handled. Misunderstanding, easiest objection to handle, because we just take responsibility, we own it, we explain it, and then we clarify it's resolved, and then we'll move on to the next stage of our process. Okay. So if it's a misunderstanding, nice and simple. If it's skepticism, remember this is they're saying, I'm not so sure that would work. So maybe the resistance with their teams might be skepticism, because I'm not sure we're going to be able to roll this out. I'm a bit skeptical, right? I'm not sure everyone will adopt it. So with skepticism, we say, okay, so what evidence or what reassurance can I provide that would give you the confidence that we can make that happen? What evidence or reassurance can I provide to give it to make you confident that we can make that happen. If it was in the example of a rollout, for example. And it may be that they want a demonstration. They might want to see a in that instance, they might want to see a rollout plan. They might want to see a training plan. They might want to see other client testimonials of similar sized departments where you've been successful in rolling out. They might want to talk to another customer that you've worked with that is satisfied with the work you've done. And once you understand what it will take to either provide evidence or give them reassurance or a plan or whatever it is that needs to happen, then you just almost confirm with the customer. So would that be enough to reassure you? If we can get that in place, would that be sufficient to reassure you? Yes or no? So we open it back up, but we're closing, yes or no? And very often in this situation, there might be a couple of things you've got to do. So you might say, well, I'll tell you what, if I share an example rollout plan for another client or another customer, and if I could get someone from that other trust just to talk to you about how we did it with them, how would you feel about that? Would that reassure you? Yes or no, right? So reassurance is what we do, is what we use to overcome skepticism. And then finally, a genuine objection. So there's a genuine objection when someone objects and it's genuine, it's like, actually, that's a problem, right? We can't do that, or we won't match that. We won't meet that requirement of the customer. When that happens, we have to be honest about the mismatch. Now, very often price will sit here. Okay, price often sits here. And if you can't meet the price of a competitor, then you have to be honest. You know, we're not going to be able to meet that specific criteria, whether it's price or any other criteria. But what we now need to do is highlight the needs that we can meet, right? So we go back through the other things we talked about, where you said that this was a challenge in the department. You said that the trust had a priority around this. You said that your team were having problems here. You said that this was going on for your patients. Can I just ask you to help us prioritize which of those is most important? And what we're trying to do now is get the customer in their own mind to prioritize where does their objection sit alongside the things we've agreed will be met from the work we do together. So we're getting the customer then to sell themselves on everything we've discussed and put the objection actually where it belongs, which should be lower down in the hierarchy, okay? And once we've done that, we then might say to the customer, so if you consider all of those factors, what would it take for you to continue to work with Blink and to go ahead with the proposal today? What would it take? And they'll tell you. And if they say, well, you have to meet the price and you can't meet the price, then you say something along the lines of, okay, so if we put price to one side, what else would it take? And this is just about handling that objection in a way that gives you structure to do it in a calm, controlled manner as part of the sales process. Okay. I'm going to put you in your rooms. Before I do, just going to check. Was that all clear? Did it make sense?
I thought that was great. And funnily enough, that whole summarizing point, I couldn't help but think of Will, because when Will first started working with us about 7 years ago, I always remember most conversations, he would always summarize about absolutely everything. And it was brilliant because he was obviously at the start of his career at Blink, and he was just trying to clarify what I had told him, or Patrick, was absolutely the God's truth, and that's what he had to do. And that I knew would lead through into his sales patter out on the road, and I'm sure that's part of the reason why he has been so successful, is that he gets absolute clarity as to what the customer is needing from him. And so this should be a very natural part of the whole thing for you, Will, I'm sure.
Yeah, brilliant.
No, definitely, yeah. No, I think it's such an important part of closing the whole process and getting clarification from the customer, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think as well for myself is when we're at that stage, I think misunderstanding, it's this thing, isn't it, of, as you rightly say, the customer doesn't understand and there is a misunderstanding, you've got to default to the position of, I haven't explained myself properly here. Although you think you may have,
yep.
It's that reflection back to, they haven't received the message clearly enough, so it's down to me to go at this again, not the fact that they're thick and they just don't get it.
I think I think as well on this as well, like, and I can speak, like I said, 8 years I think it is actually I've been with Blink, that the common misunderstanding when it's third party information. So when you, especially for our stuff in the theatre, we're not there on outpatients, and you hear from a nurse, oh, he didn't like that. Well, what didn't he like about it? And it's understanding that misunderstanding that will then help to move things forward.
But it's also that point where there's been so many times where, you know, I've been told we've got a deal and then something doesn't happen. And then you hear the words, oh, I assumed that they meant this, or I assumed they meant that. You cannot assume. And what this is all talking about is being absolutely pinpoint on every detail and understanding exactly what the customer expects, and that the customer fully understands what we are going to deliver, be that the next stage in the process or delivering the first order. I'm just saying, I've got to go as well. I've got to get on to something. So
thanks, Roger.
Really great to see this moving on though. And yeah, I probably won't see most or speak to most of you guys for a couple of weeks as I'm off, but have a good couple of weeks. Justin, no doubt we'll catch up again after this, and I'm sure it's not going to end here. I'm sure there's going to be follow-on actions that we're going to take. So really,
thanks,
really good.
Thank you. Have a great holiday.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Cheers, Rog. Take care.
Yeah.
I think just Kelly, that's pop out to just handle something. But I think for me, sometimes is when we get to the final point, and one of my observations would be is that a lot of the time with the packs, and we're working through, I think we've took a step in the right direction, because when we're now closing with customers on packs, we're actually going, we need an agreement in place to verify the fact that we've got to this stage and you're committing.
Yeah.
I think one of my observations is taking the time at that point to take the customer through the process and the agreement. And again, that then resolves any misunderstandings or objections that may come out when it comes to go to production. Say, when it comes to Kelly for customer services, they've got process there that they have to follow in communication. It's our responsibility to make sure that we've detailed that through to the customer so they fully understand the next steps of the agreement, because we know when they sign the agreement, that's just the start again. And the next stage is, what are we doing at the next stage? What should they expect from us? And just to make sure they've got that clarity, because too many times I think we get to that point and then things go astray a little bit. And that's where we lose time and focus on showing what we can do the best.
Yeah, I agree. Sounds, and that's a challenge that is faced by many companies, Tim, as you know from your history and from mine. You're absolutely right. And it's almost with the knowledge we now have, let's make sure in those final stages we absolutely get the customer clear, and we're clear on any of those specific details that we know could be advantageous for us going forward or trip us up if we don't get them right. So learn from our experience, get all those in place. Brilliant. Yeah, great. So in terms of proposals, then let's think about this, about what do you need to consider or amend and adjust as you're making proposals with customers, and think about that objection process. So we've got those 3 objections. Everything that comes up can be categorized in one of those 3 categories. Every single objection that you face will be either a misunderstanding, or it will be skepticism, or there will be a genuine objection that we've got to handle and overcome. And we've got a structure that helps us to handle each one of those 3, depending on what it comes up, including giving us some time to process it so that we manage it, identify it, and then handle it the best way possible. Okay, so that's your next kind of group discussion. I'm going to open your room. So we'll have 10 minutes on this. We'll go till 13 minutes past 3. What do you need to consider as you're making proposals and getting that commitment from the customer? How will you change the way you handle and identify objections? Okay, I'm going to open the rooms, and let me just put Barry in there. Yeah, and see you in 10 minutes.
Okay.
Right, okay. Okay, great. Welcome back, guys. So let's have a recap on where we got to. So we were talking about making proposals and going for that trial close. Remember, we talked about summarizing, gaining agreement, and then conversationally trial closing, which could surface an objection. How do we handle the objection? By qualifying it and then addressing it with the customer. So let's do the other way around this time. Room 2, which is Alan, Barry, and Jamie. What did you guys come up with?
Okay, I mean, if your customer raises an objection, you listen carefully to the reasons why they're raising the objection.
Yeah.
You make sure then, I mean, after you've listened to it, you know, you say you don't agree or disagree with it, you make sure the customer knows exactly the proposal on offer, because there might be something that you might not have explained the best. They might have not read something or not listened to something. There might be a clarity somewhere that they haven't understood exactly what you're saying. So making sure that the customer knows exactly the reasons why you have got to this stage where you made the proposal, and you're not to challenge them, but you've got this far down the line. There's obviously a reason that they may raise an objection, is making sure that the objection that they raised, that you've got an answer for it, because you're going to have an answer for it. You've been that far down the line, and if they've said something that has thrown, if you like, thrown a curveball in the system, well, you're going to be ready to have the answer, because we've got a clear marker on the line of all the reasons why they should be potentially signing a contract or signing a deal.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Barry. Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really good point. That very often, especially if you're talking about, you know, an extended contract, multiple departments, different parts of the portfolio, if it's a total conversion, actually that can get complicated. So making sure that you understand and the customer understands the same things is really, really vital. Yeah, good. Thanks, Barry. What else did you come up with in that group? Then we'll go to group 1.
Well, I think ultimately the biggest thing for us was we start off about letting the customer vent. That's the big thing. It's their moment. Let them do it. I've often found with that initial, I think maybe because I come from a private sector, but those initial objections are often just sort of smoke screens and a bit of a nothing. And so long as you sort of summarise initially, then you just keep chipping off, you keep marking off those objections, you keep addressing them, you keep neutral, keep letting them vent, make sure nothing's being misinterpreted, we're on the same page. And it's simple sales funnel, isn't it? It's just chipping away at that summary, knocking off each one until you get to the end, really.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, Justin, is, you know, if they say no, you apologise and ask them what else do we need to consider, or to make sure you're clear and concise, you know, in your reply.
Yeah.
I think on this one as well, Justin, just on the subject of objections, I've always viewed objections as actually, it sounds a bit stupid, but a positive, because from my point of view, it gives you a chance to work with the customer and build a relationship with the customer and almost be seen as the problem solver. I mean, over the years, when I've tried to win pack deals, and particularly we don't do a certain instrument, or I've worked with the account to get to a point where we need to be to win the business. So I don't think all the time an objection is a negative. I think if you flip it around, it can be quite the positive, and you can work with the customer and build, and it gives you an opportunity to build the relationship whilst working on the objection.
Yeah, great perspective, Will. Yeah, really good.
So I think sometimes they put objections there because I think they should.
Yeah.
Objections are always necessarily objections, especially the buyers.
Yeah.
So I echo what Will said. It's good to have an objection. It feels like, you know, takes it a little bit further. You're getting nearer to that close, aren't you?
Yeah.
But it feeds into that customer first again, because if you apply that rule to an objection, at the end of the day, if you work with the customer to work on the objection, you are putting the customer first. And if the outcome is you've worked with the customer to tackle the objection, to get to a point where they're happy to use your kit, then it all sort of comes full circle, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does. And you know, the other thing that could be going on, remember the other thing that could be going on for the customer in an objection, and I've seen this so many times, where we don't cover it here, right? But everybody goes through the change curve, right? And as you go through the change curve, things seem exciting at first, and then you kind of go, God, there's a lot of work in this. It might actually take me quite a bit of effort. And before you know it, you're feeling, without realizing, you don't think it consciously, you start to feel, God, this is going to be tough. This is going to be a lot of work. I'm not sure I'm going to get the team on board. How am I going to go? And the customer might be going through that process as you're talking to them. So to just nurture it, be curious, ask questions, handle each of you. Well, we can help you by doing this. Okay, to overcome that, yes, sure, we can. I'll tell you what, how about we try this together, or what have you found that works before? Slowly, because you want to take them through that process so they convince themselves and come out of the other end. And sometimes you won't be able to do it in one meeting. Sometimes you might have to accept, you know what, I should probably pause this here, allow the customer to process this, get clear on, right, let's take some steps that are going to, reestablish confidence with the customer, and then we pick it up again at a future meeting, maybe a week or two down the line. But you're all absolutely bang on that this is about handling those objections carefully, staying neutral, being curious, addressing each concern carefully, and sometimes it is about influencing. We're influencing and persuading people through that conversation. Good, very good. Tim.
Yeah, I've just got one thing. I think this is also as well with, I think there's a comment here about the person, it's about who's in the room, who we're closing with is an element of this as well. Is that we know that within the private clinics, etc., we just see a decision maker.
Yeah.
And that person makes decisions, and it's really nice and straightforward and simple. We know with the larger contracts and things in the NHS, we can be making kind of almost having these closing meetings with individuals who don't have personally the authority to move forward on them saying, yeah, I agree, it's great. And I think for us, it's understanding. I think on one of the previous slides there, I think it's around for that individual we're trying to close with, that we've got the contact with, is who else is influential around this, and is everybody aligned for us to go forward on this, or what?
Yeah.
Not just the person in front of us. We've also got to be acknowledging the fact that maybe 3 people behind the individual, and that we're closing off everything that they require. Because I know at the moment we've had a couple of instances saying Leicester with Barry, and he's just had an iPad issue, so he's trying to reboot.
He's back in. Hold on, let me.
Back in.
Yeah.
Is our contact, our primary contact, that is a good contact, would be going ahead tomorrow, completely bought in, completely understood. But it's her stakeholder group where there's an element of misunderstanding, skepticism that she's trying to handle and we're trying to support. So I think it really is, again, from the early stages, understanding the stakeholder group, and that when we get to this point, that the stakeholder groups are all fully aligned as well. So I think it's not just the person that's in front of us.
No, we said our group sort of touched upon that, and when in the proposal process, we sort of highlighted the importance of you need to identify the decision makers, because there's so many times where you've gone to sign an agreement with procurement, and I think the key here is identifying decision makers, get the clinical buy-in, and make sure everyone is aware of the proposal, because you might be talking to someone from a clinic level and procurement haven't got a clue what you're talking about. So it's just like Tim said then, identifying and making sure everyone's aware of the proposal.
Yeah,
I think you're right. Sorry, I came in late. My iPad froze. I think it's so important nowadays that you do that, because there are so many decision makers involved in the process nowadays. It's not just 1 or 2 people. It's usually, especially in NHS, a line of people. So I always make sure now, obviously in these sessions of help, the first thing you do is find out all of the key decision makers, as everyone who needs to be involved in the process, aware of the process, involved in the process. And it's so important now.
Yeah. Because I think with a certain, like you said, and I've worked on quite a few numerous sort of complex NHS sort of accounts over the years, and there's not just one decision maker usually. There's actually a variety of different decision makers. One decision maker from a clinical point of view, one decision from a financial point of view, one decision in this. So it's just like we said then, just being aware of that is key, I think, to getting a successful proposal.
Yeah, agreed.
We saw it last week. I think I was down with Maggie last week, and I know Maggie and Will have followed up on this today. We saw the clinical lead, theatre manager, unit manager, discussed a proposal, absolutely bought in, said, yep, I've told them this is for us. I've handed it over to procurement. You'll have to follow up with them around the commercial side of it. And I think this is the element of, sometimes you might get a unit that is cohesive and will engage together.
Yeah.
But also in the NHS, you do find that it just gets batted from one department to another because they're not cohesive in which the way they're approaching things themselves.
Yeah.
We're to a degree we can support that, but we're not going to change some of those behaviours. It's embedded in some of that culture. So it's how we work those people and make sure that we know where everybody's at and how they respond to each other.
Yeah.
I think also, Tim, you know, with the current state of play with the pandemic, etc., 9 times out of 10, the procurement people aren't even in the hospital. They're based at home or wherever. So that does make it a lot more difficult.
There's even more of a disconnect there than there was historically, wasn't there? Because they're not even
absolutely.
They're not even. I mean, it's gone are the days where I'll just pop down and see the eye unit. From they can't. Like I said, they've got that ability to do so now. So I think you're right. That also plays an important part moving forward.
There's an opportunity here, is to understand that for us to work it. We use what we've been trained on, what we're discussing, and we tie things together, and we're better than the competition in those circumstances.
Yeah.
Is we don't go, they're disconnected, it's a problem. We go, you know what? I'm going to be the person that puts this together, because there's going to be 3 or 4 other people from other companies that are going to fall by the wayside on this.
Yeah, absolutely. It becomes part of your value. You are connecting the customer together without where they perhaps are struggling to do that themselves internally. Very good. Let me just, there's a principle that is worth just quickly checking in on, then we'll take a short break. So when you've got multiple decision makers, okay, when we've got a complex account like this, or a lot of your accounts will be complex because of the nature of the NHS, think about 3 things, okay? Think about who's making the decision. That's what we've just been talking about. Who are the decision makers, right? Secondly, think about what is the decision-making process? What are the stages they go through? What happens next? What happens after that? What happens after that? What happens after that until a decision is made and then you can carry on with the conversion, right? So you've got people, process, and then the final piece is criteria. How will they measure whether they're going to change or not? So you've got who's involved in making the decision, what's the process and the steps they'll follow, what's the criteria they're going to use to assess whether or not they change. And if you can think like that, so again, you know, we're going to go right back to needs discovery. Part of our needs discovery, who else should we be talking to? What are the steps you'll go through to make the decision? What are the things you'll measure? What are the criteria that you're measuring? And I tell you, having asked these 3 questions time and time again, very often you will be teaching the customer. The customer will go, actually, I haven't thought about it like that. Yeah, well, you know, the formulary committee will meet, or this group of people, so this specialist group meet, so it'll have to be presented to them, assuming they sign it off, and you go, okay, who's on that committee? Oh, right, so you've got the, you know, consultant, surgeon, you've got this person, you've got that theatre manager, you've got, okay, right, so they're all on that committee, right, so they'll all need to be informed, or at least, you know, have a say in it. Yeah, right, check them off. So it goes to that committee. What happens next? Well, after that committee, then it goes to, you know, it might go to meds management, it might go to procurement. Okay, so procurement and next. What then? Oh, well, then you'd have to, you know, so then you might have to look at, you know, a pricing analysis by somebody, might go into stores or whatever. But map all that out. What are the steps? And then you say, so based on each of those people, what are the things what are the questions they ask? What's the criteria they're looking for? So clinical efficacy might be evidence, it might be pricing, it might be, very often it might be, you know, what support do we get after we've switched? Are you going to come in and train all the teams? Are we going to be, you know, confident in you know, changing over and knowing the codes and stuff? Are you going to sit with stores and make sure that they know how to allocate it properly? All those kind of things. But you only get that by thinking about those 3 stages. Okay. Any questions on that?
No, that's good.
Makes sense, doesn't it? Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Guys, we are at 15:27. Let's pause the recording and take a short break. Should we go? Do you want 13 minutes? Should we go to 22?
Yeah, sounds good.
22. Brilliant. Right. See you then. Thanks, guys. See you at 22.
See you in a bit.
See you in a bit. So let's share my screen again. Here we go. So we've just talked about, you can all see my screen, yeah?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we just talked about proposals. That's proposals done then. So we propose, we handle objections, we've trial closed, and so we're ready now for final stage, which we call immediate action. Okay, so this is about creating immediacy and urgency with our customer. And we know that if we don't create urgency, there's this saying that says enthusiasm has a half-life. Right? Enthusiasm has a half-life. People will be enthusiastic in the meeting with you. You leave, emails come in, patients come in, other members of the team come in, the trust kind of objectives start to flow, and all of a sudden we are a distant memory, right? So you've got to make sure that we capture the urgency of the moment and we forward pace it with the customer so that they maintain that urgency alongside us. So it's our final stage, apart from that self-reflection stage, which we'll cover next. Final stage, what we've got to do now is be really clear on the actions that are going to happen next. But before we do that, we trial closed, we handled objections. Now we need to gain commitment, okay? And as before, conversational. So something like, so you're happy if we go ahead with the order? Or so you're happy if I go ahead and create the contract, or send you a proposal, or confirm the proposal, or send you, the final documents for signature, or whatever stage we're at, right? Or you might say, is there anything else we need to consider before we go ahead and confirm the order or the contract or the proposal then? Anything else we need to consider before we go ahead and confirm? Or if we were going to confirm today, is there anything else you need? Any other information you need? And at that point, the customer should say no or yes, we're all good, we're good to go. Okay, so this is that final stage. We've trial closed, handled objections. This is the final closing or gaining commitment stage. So assuming that the customer says yes, that's when they might start to go, can we talk about the price, or can we talk about how much training we get, or can we talk about discount, or can we talk about payment terms, or whatever, right? And so we might end up in a situation where we go, God, I thought I was across the line, right? I thought I was across the line, and now all of a sudden we're negotiating, right? So at this stage we might be negotiating. So 6 principles or tips for handling that situation when we're negotiating with somebody, okay? So first one, whenever we get into a negotiation, there's a real temptation. I don't know if you found this yourselves. I've had this lots of times where we because we're not comfortable, we rush it. We kind of agree to things that on reflection, we think, I'm not sure I needed to give them that. I'm not sure I needed to go that low or needed to offer that much. Right? Sometimes we do it without thinking because we want to get rid of the discomfort, move on. So when a negotiation happens, say to yourself, slow down, take your time, get comfortable. Say it to yourself, slow down, take your time, get comfortable. And it changes the whole dynamic because you no longer feel the pressure that you would if you hadn't kind of calmed yourself in your mind. So we get comfortable first, take our time. Second, when the customer starts to negotiate and ask us for things, which they'll inevitably do, right? When they ask, what we should do is start to, rather than, if a customer asks for a better price or we're going to have to do this, normally we kind of swallow it and we kind of act as if it's all okay and go, I'll have to see, or let me think about it, and we don't do what we should do in a negotiation. And what we should do in negotiation is show a reaction. So if a customer asks for something that's a bit unreasonable, we should go, that could be tough. And we should actually show some form of reaction that switches the pressure from us to the customer. So that instead of them making a demand on us, we reverse it so they might feel like what they've asked for is a little bit over the top. And by doing that, negotiators that work for maybe the NHS, but certainly private sector, they are trained to flinch. They call it a professional flinch. And you intentionally show a reaction so that the other person starts to feel pressure, not you. So when someone asks you for something that you think is a bit unreasonable, just go, that might be tough, because they'll immediately feel a bit more pressure than you do in that moment. So we just switch the pressure. Third is this is an obvious one, but sometimes when we get into negotiations, we can feel the pressure. Customer feels the pressure. We feel a little bit disjointed, and then we might start batting things forwards and backwards, and we forget that actually the outcome we want is to close the deal in a way that works for both parties, right? So remember, focus on the outcome. What I want, all right, I want the customer happy with the deal because this is a long-term arrangement, right? I want to be happy with the deal. We want everybody to get what they need. Focus on the outcome. And then we're going to do an exercise in a moment, which is about listing the points of negotiation. So there's never one thing. In a negotiation, there's never one thing. We shouldn't get tied to, say, price. We should be talking about all of the different points of value that we can use as part of the negotiation. We'll talk about that in a second. And then once we understand all of the different points of negotiation, the points of value, what we should be doing is trading at every opportunity, not giving anything away. Okay, so we don't give anything away, we always trade. And that trading is where we create equity in the relationship and equity in the deal that we're trying to confirm with the customer. And then finally, final point on these 6 tips is remember, we've got the outcome in mind. We're aiming for win-win. This isn't us versus the customer when we're negotiating. It's us with the customer. And we've really got to think about, okay, how do we make sure this deal is good for them? They believe they're getting the right deal as part of our package and proposal, and it's a good deal for us. We don't want to, we don't want to feel as if we've had the shirt taken off our backs. We want to feel like it's a profitable, good deal for the business. So it's a good, solid deal for the customer. So we're looking for this win-win, right? Now, I don't know how often you find yourself in these negotiations, probably more often with people like procurement, okay? And remember, where we are in the process is that we've created a lot of value through the conversation. We've understood the needs, we've matched the needs to solutions. So when we're at this stage of the process and we've asked for commitment, we should be in a position where we've got good connection with the customer. They understand the value. So when we negotiate, we can use a bit of leverage because we've got some stuff invested here. So we don't have to just give any of our points of negotiation or any of our points of value. We can actually stand our ground and feel confident doing that. And there's a couple of principles that are also worth just reflecting on. There's a brilliant book by a guy called Chris Voss. Sorry, I've lost his name from it, but called Chris Voss, called, I'll get off my bookshelf if you're interested, called Never Split the Difference. And it's specifically about negotiating. Now, he was the FBI's lead hostage negotiator for about 20 years. He led the hostage negotiation team. And the book is called Never Split the Difference because it was never an option for him. He couldn't say, oh, well, you've got 20 people held hostage, kill 10 of them and we'll free the others. He always had to get everybody out. And it's a fascinating book on psychology. There's a couple of things that he talked about. The first one is this phrase around negotiating that is, if you, then I. So if you would be prepared to commit to a 3-year term instead of the 1+1 or whatever demand you're making, whatever tradable you want, then I could look at the pricing with my team. Okay, if you could do this, then I could do that. And it just makes everything you talk about conditional. So you're never just saying, all right, I'll give you a better price. You have to know what you want in exchange for what the customer's asking for, and then link the two by saying, if you, then I. And the other piece that he talks about, and this is a fascinating response to a negotiating request, is instead of going, oh, it's going to be difficult, you might flinch and then say, how am I supposed to do that? If you're in a position where you really are backed into a corner by a procurement team or a procurement person, and you use that question, how am I supposed to do that? We talked earlier about questions that get the customer selling to themselves, right? This is a question that gets the customer negotiating with themselves. You'd be really surprised. It's really effective. How am I supposed to do that? And then the customer starts kind of almost rationalizing it in response to your question. Now, on the odd occasion, you might get someone that says, well, that's not my job to figure out, it's yours. You say, how am I supposed to do that? And they go, well, that's not my job to figure out, it's yours. And you just simply say, oh, come on, be serious. How am I supposed to do that? And they'll answer, and they'll then start going, well, I appreciate it's difficult, and they'll start selling themselves on the negotiation. Really fascinating. It's a psychological principle, works really effectively. So that's what happens when we get into negotiations. There are ways that we can manage it that are more effective than if we just kind of go, okay, what do you want? I'll see what I can do, right? We should be managing this more, managing ourselves proactively, managing the negotiation process more effectively. So, assuming we've done that, this is our final stage. We've negotiated, we've got we're clear on the steps. In a moment, we're going to look at immediate action and a couple of other things, but we're also going to look at the points of negotiation. So I want you to think about what are the things that you might ask the customer for that you might exchange for things they request of you. So what would I ask for in exchange for the things that they're asking of me? Okay, we'll do that in a second. But this is our final stage. It's about immediate action. And remember what this is about, creating urgency. So what might be included are things like the actions you're going to take to process the order, the contract, the program evaluation, depending on where you are in your sales stage. So these are the actions I'm going to take. The timing of those actions. This is when I'm going to do all of those different things, and then do the same for your customer. So from what I've noted down, these are the things I had you down for. These are things you're going to do. Can we confirm the timing of when you'll do that? So, the example that you've given today, Alan, of, the nurse that's got to get the feedback from the doctor, final feedback. Okay, when we get the feedback, when will we set up a call? What time? Specifically, when will you do that? So we just get people really onboarded with the actions they're due to take, and then the next steps beyond the meeting. So even once you've got that feedback and we confirm Friday afternoon, or what day? No, it's Thursday afternoon, right? Then what are the next steps beyond that? So I've got the confirmation. So then what is it? I'll send you the contract. Yeah, okay. Then you sign it. Okay, it comes back to me. Then who else? Then what else? And next steps. Always, if we can always map out the next 2 or 3 steps beyond that specific meeting, we're always going to have a sense of control and the ability to compress the timing of those actions, because we've got that clarity over what's going to happen when. Okay, and then of course the date and the time for the next discussion, the next follow-up discussion, and we diarise that so the customer has it in their diary and calendar as well. And so once all that's in place, right, we're always joining up one stage with the next, one meeting with the next. We're keeping the sales cycle fluid and moving. Then there's a really simple principle. You'll be doing some of this, you might not be doing all of it, so I'll just suggest it to you because it works. It's really effective if you get it right every time. First thing is thank you. So we always thank the customer. Thank you so much for doing business with us. We really appreciate it. At Blink, we really appreciate our customers. So thank you, for choosing to do business with us, right? Really important part of the process, thanking your customers for doing business with you, because not everyone does it. And if you do it, it becomes part of your differentiation. Then the other thing that I find is really useful is just to ask for feedback. Would you mind today, we've got, in the last 5 minutes of our meeting, and giving me some feedback on how you found working with us, working with me, the support that we provide. Would you mind if I ask you some feedback? And normally when you ask for feedback, people are positive, right? Because they like to give you positive feedback. And so when you do that, the customer then starts to sell you to themselves again. They're reinforcing the good stuff you've done, right? So would you mind if I had some feedback for me or the organization? And they'll tell you. And even if bad stuff comes up, that creates an opportunity for you to fix it and improve the experience anyway. So there's no downside to that question, right? Feedback. Would you mind if I ask for some feedback on how you find working with us, working with the organization? And it can be really effective. And then finally, so I think of these as kind of 3 steps: thank you, feedback, either referral or testimonial. So would they recommend you to colleagues, friends, not necessarily family in this instance, but you never know, because a lot of medical staff do have family in the profession. But would you recommend us to other people that you work with, other colleagues in the hospital, or other colleagues in your network? Would you recommend us? And just ask, is there anyone else you think might benefit from a conversation with us? And you'd be surprised how often that surfaces an opportunity. Just that simple question. Would you recommend this to anyone else in your network? Who else might be suitable for a conversation? And then finally, think about building case studies and testimonials for the future. Would you be interested in working with us on a case study or a testimonial? Would you approve something like that to share best practice for your trust in association with Blink? And people like to be associated with positive stories, with good work they're doing. If you position it in a way that elevates your customer alongside you, you will find that you'll get a really positive response to that. So thank you, feedback, referral, testimonial. They're the kind of 3 steps, and that final step, you might do one or the other. I wouldn't do both in the same meeting, but certainly think one or the other, referral stroke testimonial. When you do one, do the other at the next meeting, right? And if you make that part of your rhythm, so this is part of our immediate action. We've got really clear on the actions, and then we go, oh, before we finish, thank you, feedback, referral, testimonial. Really nice, clean and clear. And I talked about joining up the sales process. I have this mental image in my mind whenever I think about sales, and I think about the 2 front seats in a car, right? And I think about the sales, you think about the sales cycle, right? There's 2 front seats in the car. You've got 1 seat for you, 1 seat for your customer. And if we don't have the next meeting planned, if that's not in diaries, if that's not agreed here and now, between now and whenever that next meeting happens, we've effectively given the customer the driver's seat. So, right, you drive, we'll work out when we get there, and whether we get there doesn't matter. So our job is to always take the driver's seat. Take the driver's seat, hold the wheel. Okay, next meeting. How long do we need before we meet again? What day works for you that week? What time that day? How long will we need? Start to really just join up every interaction with the next, every interaction with the next. So it's always got that process in place, even if it's 3 months out. If you're early in the cycle and they say, well, we've got a review coming up, but it won't be until next year. You go, okay, well, we're July. So when should we check in? Do you think you might start planning that September time? They might go, yeah, well, maybe more like October. Okay, so should we meet early October? Yeah, that would probably work. Okay, let's have a look. I'll pop my diary up if that's okay. Have a look. Oh, week commencing, 5th of October. Yeah, which day that week? Get it in the diary. Don't let someone say, oh, well, it's going to be end of the year, and then go, all right, I'll try and catch you at some point in the future then, right? The thing about marking your diary is it connects you to the customer, make sure that you build momentum and maintain momentum, and it acts as a reminder for them and for you, so you don't have to then think about following up and chasing. So it's a productivity hack as much as anything else as well. Okay, so I want you to think about this final stage of immediate action. Okay, what do you need to do to consistently create immediate action? I want you to think about the negotiations that we talked about. So we talked about those 6 principles of negotiation. We also talked about trading. I want you to think about the things that are valuable that you can ask the customer for, so that if they say to you, if you get into a negotiation, they start asking for price, you've got a list of things that you know are valuable to you and the company that you can say, well, if you could have a look at this, I can have a look at the price with my manager or with my team, right? So we never give anything, we're always trading. So it feels more valuable for the customer. Believe it or not, the customer feels like they're getting more value because they're providing something in exchange. So the immediate action piece, the negotiation and the items that we might ask for, and then finally this thank you, feedback, referral, testimonial. Okay, make sense?
Yep.
Good. So all in the details, right? So let me. So we have 10 minutes on this, and then we'll check back in. If you need a bit longer, we'll go back again. Let me just put Barry into room 2. So 10 minutes. We'll come back. If we need a bit longer, we'll go out again. But 10 minutes on those 3 bits. See you then. Sorry, I just remembered I hadn't pressed the record button. Yeah. So reiterating the customer's process by asking them, getting them to confirm it. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Go on, Maggie, carry on. Yeah, next steps, Alan. Yeah, clear on next steps. What about What about the negotiation? What things should you be asking, or could you be asking for if you end up in a situation where the customer's asking for price reductions or something?
So the trade-off.
Yeah.
Don't give anything away.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so what would you ask for?
Testimonials.
Yeah.
What else?
Referrals.
Thank you. Delivery, something silly as, so it's not silly, but if we can, fulfill your expectations of delivery, for example, there might be with a customer that keeps them hanging on for weeks on end for, just, I think really just instilling what we do good, well, and how we do it as well. And sometimes, if they're asking for money off, we don't like to do that, but it just could be pennies in our packs, for example. We've had this situation this week. Literally, we took pennies off the value of a pack.
Yeah.
It's a gesture, isn't it? Wasn't it? And I know what you're saying. We don't want to give stuff away.
No, I think you're right, Maggie, as well. You could add to that if they commit to a longer term of using these packs. If they could say you sign a 2-year contract or 3-year contract instead of a 12-month contract, then I suppose there are certain things that you may be able to slightly reduce the cost of packs or sets for.
You've explained it exactly how I wanted to say it.
So here's my request of you. If you haven't done it in that exercise, here's my request of you. As a team, work on all of the different things you should be asking for of your customer, right? So you're absolutely bang on. You can ask the referrals, you can ask the testimonials, but you can also ask the tangible things. So you can ask for contract extensions. You can ask for stock consolidation. You can ask for, I don't know how flexible they are on payment terms. Payment terms become a negotiating point. You can ask for, you can ask for timelines to be compressed. Well, if you can get this done more quickly, we might be able to look at the price. Or, but I would say start to really think creatively about what you can be asking for, because there's so much opportunity here to leverage the relationship with the customer. And there's a principle that there's a framework for negotiating. If you think about things that are high value to you, save you time, save you money, high value to you, but relatively low cost to the customer, right? Relatively low cost to the customer, versus things that are high value to the customer and low cost to you, right? So you've got high value to the customer, low cost to you, high value to you, low cost to the customer, and they become your tradables. Because you can ask for stuff, and you can, like testimonials and referrals and contract term extensions are relatively low cost for your customer, but they're high value for you because you can really leverage those as assets. Whereas for the customer, there may be things that they want that are high value to them, like training, like, I don't know,
support,
all sorts of stuff, right? Low cost to you because it's embedded within your organization, high value to the customer. And it's understanding, actually, when I'm negotiating, if I think about the way that that's structured, I can make some really good requests to the customer. Because, you know what, that's easy to give, but it's high value to me. And then I can start saying to the customer, well, instead of price, what about this? You can start thinking, I know this is high value to the customer, I know it's low cost to me, and start to offer that instead. And it just
I think the biggest thing, Justin, in terms of Blink versus the competition, particularly the bigger boys, is they seem to have this blasé attitude that once they've got the order or they've got the contract or whatever, never to be seen again. The values and the policies with Blink is that's just, for us, that's just the beginning, because as you just said, it's not about just selling the product, it's about offering them the support, the backup and the service that they require, and to ensure that they know that if there are any issues, they can pick up the phone or email you, or they also know that you're going to be seeing them on a regular basis, just to ensure that things are running smoothly. So we have a very different philosophy to a lot of the competitors out there, and I'm sure everybody would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's what makes us different, Justin, I think.
Yeah, and it's good that you have that confidence in the delivery of the service you deliver to customers. The challenge is that sometimes you might meet someone that goes, yeah, we take that for granted. You may, I've had that.
I must say, Justin, I've never come across that. I come across the opposite. I come across people who turn around and say to me, well, it's really nice to know, he said, because the people that we're currently using, I've never seen a rep since we started using them.
Okay. That's a nice position to be in, Alan. Very nice.
It's a lovely position to be in, but you've got to uphold it. You got to act on your words. You've got to be there. And I'm sure everyone will agree with you. A high percentage of our business we do is just that, because it's back to what Baz was saying very early on about building relationships. The longer you're doing it, the better relationship you're getting with that end user, and then that can potentially become more business in the future once they get to know you and they know you're reliable, you're honest, etc., etc.
So Alan, I agree with you entirely. Let's go back to the point, right? I will encourage you, all of you, to kind of get a working list of the negotiating variables, the things that, so when anybody when somebody tries to negotiate with me on pricing on programs, okay, I have a list of things that I know are valuable to me. And when someone starts to negotiate, I pull out the list and I just say, well, let's have a conversation. If you want to talk about price, let's talk about the things that are valuable to you, talk about the things that are valuable to me. Let's look at, see where there might be flexibility. So I don't sit there and go, oh, I might have to squeak a bit of price, or I might have to do a bit of this, I'm prepared. And it means that every time that conversation goes up, I pull up my list and I just go, okay, yeah, great. I'm definitely happy to have a conversation. And then I talk about the things so I can talk about additional workshops, I can talk about the scorecard, I can talk about the recording of the sessions, I can talk about lots of different things that will add value to the customer, and I can add and provide all of this stuff for you. However, what I'd like to understand is, there's some things that are useful to me in my business, like, for me, testimonials, referrals are valuable for me. So are extended programs beyond just one single set of workshops. So I start to talk about all that. So if you were going to commit to a longer range program, we would definitely look at the price. If you were going to look at this, if you could provide me with a testimonial at the end, I can definitely look at it. If you have someone else you can refer me to in your network that you think would be valuable, if that referral works, I'll absolutely look at how that works for you going into the future in programs. So all of a sudden you can start to have those conversations and just be a bit more informed in the negotiation. So that's the principle, because there'll be things today you might be able to leverage from customers that you're not leveraging, and they would be able to give them to you with relatively low friction, low resistance. So just, if you could, as a team, think, what are the things we perhaps should start to ask for? They may be informing your marketing plans. They may be helping with, referring and growing your business. They're the two key principles.
I think for ourselves, especially if it's a pack deal, you develop the pack along with the customer really leading you on the specification. From my experience, when you get to that point about price, if there's resistance to the price, almost one of the first referrals back is, well, if you're actually looking to actually shave some cost out of this, or the expenditure's looking too high for you, is can we revisit the specification ourselves and see if we can work something on the specification that's going to give you what you require from the price point? Because a lot of the time people will want to spec up a full-blown top-of-the-range BMW, and they'll go to that point and realize they can't afford it. So for ourselves, we've always got options to go back to and go, actually, we can save a little bit here, we can swap this. And we've been doing that with this large tender. Is we've been working the components and the price has been dropping away, but our margin has been staying consistent or increasing. So I'd always say, can we review the specification of what you're after?
Yeah, that's a great trade. That's a great trade. We can if you're prepared for us to rework the specification, we can definitely look at the price. And as you say, Tim, you may be reducing price, but you could then improve profitability and margin. So actually, it's a win-win for you and the customer. They get
You're
the
building that customer confidence then as well, aren't you? As well,
Yeah.
which is great. So it's a bit of a win-win.
Good. Okay, excellent. So I'll leave that. I'll put that in the notes as a follow-up for today. You can think about those tradables because that's going to really help you in negotiations. And you know, when you the interesting thing, when you leverage some of these relationships and you ask your customer something, you might think it's a withdrawal from the emotional bank account, right? But very often with things like testimonials and referrals, because the customer's then endorsing you, they're selling themselves on you again. So it's actually a deposit. And if they're referring you to someone, they generally will do it and say, oh, you should talk to Maggie because she's really good. She provides us with lots of great support. We've got a great working relationship with them. It becomes a deposit. So it's not a withdrawal, it's a deposit, and yet you've negotiated for it. So it'll be really powerful. Just, you know, really embrace this as a principle as well. Okay, great, good. Thanks, guys. Any other thoughts? Did anybody else want to share anything on that final piece? Silence is consensus to move on. Okay, let's go. Right, so this is the final stage, right? So what we've just covered, that final piece, thank you, feedback, referral, testimonial. We shake hands and we leave. Right, thanks very much, really enjoyed it. Feedback, would you consider this in the future? Great. We've got our next meeting booked. We're clear on the actions I'm taking, you're taking, when they'll be done, and the next meeting. Right? Thanks. See you later. Pleasure doing business with you. See you in a couple of weeks. Right? So that's the end of the process. We walk out the hospital or the environment wherever we are, and now it's about how we think about the way we've performed and continually improve the way we've performed. How do we continually improve the way we've performed? We do that through self-reflection. Okay? We do it through self-reflection. And by doing this, it starts to improve the way we think about ourselves. It gets us to proactively embrace coaching and personal development. And it's really good for our own self-esteem, self-worth, self-belief, and performance. So before we cover how to do it, I'm just going to tell you why it's important. Lots of reasons why reflection is important. What the evidence shows, is that people who invest in personal growth and development have a higher sense of achievement and have a higher sense of momentum in the work they do. They kind of make more progress. They're more confident about what they do. They add greater relevance to the people they work with. They ensure greater future success for themselves and the people that work with them. They're more creative because they're continually reflecting and asking themselves, how can I improve? How can I improve? When you measure the brain's plasticity, the brains of people who actively seek out personal development is greater. It's more malleable and plastic. So they get this continual brain kind of evolution and development. And of course, they continually improve in their role, in their business, and their customers sense that as well. So lots of reasons why we should do it. How we do it, lots of ways to do it. A really simple model that I've used and continue to use to this day is three simple questions, right? Three questions. The first question, so it's win, learn, change. So first question is what went well? So I've come out and I've had a session. I will do it today at 5 o'clock. I'll go, right, what went well in that session? And I'll just kind of make some notes to myself. Yeah, great. What did I learn from that session? What did I learn? And I'll probably have one or two things. And then I'll say, what will I commit to change? What do I need to change going forward into next sessions like this? Right? Win, learn, change. And it's structured in that way because when we ask ourselves first, what went well or what did I win? It kind of positively ignites our brain. So we're like, okay, that's a positive thing, right? That first positive question then is empowering for us to then go, okay, what did I learn? Takes us from positive to a neutral question. And then the third question, when I said, right, I learned this, I'm now ready to talk about change. So win, learn, change as a process is really powerful because it helps us to understand, the steps in order to move to change. And so if you ask yourself these questions on a regular basis, however often you decide, and then reflect on them at the end of a period, whether that's daily or weekly, and that actually starts to, you'd be surprised at how powerful that is in becoming more self-aware and starting to embrace personal development. And so in terms of reflection, I've got five top tips, and then I'm also going to share with you a couple of plan templates that might be useful for you. But 5 top tips. One is to find a practical way to capture insights. So find a practical way, whether that's a diary or a notebook or a journal or an electronic pad on your iPad or notes on your iPad. But just find something where you're actually just going to use a section of that just for my own personal development. Add a section for yourself. And schedule some time. So every Friday afternoon at 4:30, I have a half-an-hour meeting with myself. And in the content of the meeting, in the description, it says win, learn, change. And every Friday at 4:30, it finishes my week. I have half an hour, I wrap up the week, I go, right, look back through the diary, look back through the things that I've done, and I've got a series of questions that are a bit more than win, learn, change, but it prompts me to stop and reflect and think about elevation. How do I elevate beyond where I've got to this week? So it's really powerful as a principle. I then track. So I just have a simple tracker, because I'm putting these into a single document. I then track where I am with stuff. So if I'm going to make some improvements in the way I run workshops, I try and track that. Is that working? Did using this actually make a difference? And so I'm kind of trying to work out, is it working? Isn't it working? So track the actions. And then this year I'm on a business program. So I have a mentor as part of my business program, and I'm discussing my development all the time, at least on a monthly basis, with someone that is a mentor for me in my business. So I'd encourage you to think about that. You've got accountability partners as part of our groups going forward. So just discuss your own development, the things that are important to you with your accountability partner, or with Tim as your manager, but just so that you've got someone that you're checking in with and you say, I'm working on this at the moment. Or here's a priority for me at the moment. This is what I learned in the last couple of weeks. And it really helps you with accountability and follow through on the actions. And then, of course, if you have a development plan, you can combine this as part of your development plan. So it becomes something that's documented and a bit more tangible for you to work on, if that's something you want to do. And so that links really nicely to development plans. And I don't know where you are on this. I share this with you as a principle because it's been valuable for me in the past and remains valuable for me, even to this day. But I have a couple of tools that I've used and continue to use. The first is what I call a strategic career development plan. So this is like a plan on a page, and it talks about, I'll send you these documents afterwards, but you kind of have this at the top. It's a bit about you and your position. And then the next section is about what's important to you from a career perspective, personal perspective, life perspective, the skills that you have, the experience that you've gained, and what you need to be good at in your current job. Right? Then you might start to think about career interests. What's the next job? What's the midterm job? What's the long-term job? And that may be, you might say, do you know what, actually, I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I just want to get really, really good at it. Which is where I am in my business, right? I want to be the best at what I do. But then you might say, well, actually, as part of my development plan, what courses should I be looking at? What things should I be doing in the job that might help me to get the experience I'm looking for to get better? And then what do I need to do myself? What should I be personally responsible for? And there's this, I don't know if you heard of this 70-20-10 rule, but you've got 10% will be formal stuff that you do, like the program we're on now. 70% will be work you do in the job, and 20% might be things that you have to do yourself personally, mentors, conversations with other people, and accountability. And then finally, in the bottom here, you've got some stuff like what don't I like, what are my USPs? So we do that for our product set. What's unique about the products we sell? We should also be clear on what's unique about us. What is unique about us as people? Just give you a way to capture that and be clear on it. And then finally, at the bottom, you've got some actions with timing. So you can do this stuff in the bottom, which takes us really nicely to, so this is the strategic plan on a page. Then if you wanted to go a bit more tactical, there is this development action plan, where you just pick 3 areas that you're working on at any point in time. And you say, what's the area I'm developing? what's the goal or desired outcome, what's the time scale I'm going to work on it, and what are the key actions that I'm taking to meet that goal or desired outcome. So these are optional tools. I don't want to kind of flood you with something that isn't necessary, but have a conversation with each other and with Tim and decide if these are things that you want to start to look at and work with. I will send you the templates. There's no obligation here, but I'll send you the templates so you've got them. It's a single Excel document with 4 tabs. So you'll have tab 1 is tab 1 is the example strategic development plan. Tab 2 is the blank. Tab 3 is the example development action plan. Tab 4 is the blank development action plan. So you've got just some options. It just gives you options if you thought this was something that might help you clarify your position on personal development. Okay. Right, we'll go back into our breakout rooms. So this is that final stage, reflection, continuing to improve, thinking about your own development actions, the areas that you want to focus in on, and doing that as part of your accountability groups. So we open the rooms, we'll go to 8 minutes on this, we'll come back at 22. Kelly, let's pop you back in room 1, there we go. See you in 8 minutes. Let's crack it. We're back on recording. What did you discuss? This was around personal reflection and development. What did you guys talk about in your groups?
I think me and Maggie had a good example recently in terms of reflection, and I think the good one was recently Maggie went into theatre for the first. Well, Maggie, I'll let you take over because it was your reflection, so you crack on.
So I was in theatre for the first time, and a surgeon asked me a question that I couldn't answer, which killed me, obviously. So I felt like a muppet, but I explained that, Will was outside, thank God, and that please, if you've got a minute, spend with Will. He will explain to you the answer to what the question he was asking. And I come out and I was gutted, and I said to Will, you know, shouldn't happen. So my reflection was, you know, to obviously get these products in my head, learn all about them. What do I need to take in with me? I need to take my notes in with me. I need to take some sort of information in with me so I can get it out of my bag and just show, you know, something more so than just going, I'm sorry, I can't help you, which is not acceptable. But, you know, that was my big reflection of that day. So now I know what to do. I know how to combat that. You're not going to know the answer to all questions.
Well, it's good you have the answer as well, isn't it? So I don't know, but I've got someone who will. I'll just go and you can go in and speak to them, which is, you know.
The problem is, Barry, I didn't know either. I did.
I'll just put you on hold a minute. I'll just phone up the office again.
Which, yeah, it was great that Will was there, but, you know, sometimes you don't realise that you can take things into theatre. You don't know you can take your bag in with you. You don't know these things, and that's, you know, that was part of it, like I said, part of my reflection of that moment. But development-wise, you know, I'm a real advocate of listening to downloads, of reading books, of just trying to learn a little bit more about stuff. And, you know, sometimes you can sit there and you can criticise yourself all the time, but you do good things too. And it's remembering that you do good things. It's not all bad.
If only someone wrote an award-winning book on how to sell.
Yeah.
That's right.
I know there's a real gap in the market.
I've got a shelf full of them.
But that's a really good insight, Maggie. And think so you've got, you know, taking your notes with you, taking perhaps demo product or you know, information, product catalog, that sort of thing. What if you still can't find the answer and Will's not there?
I think if I couldn't find the answer, I'd have to be honest and truthful and just ask questions. What would that be for? How do you need that to work for you? Do you have an example? Can I take a photograph of it? Because sometimes people will say, do you have this but smaller? So I'll say, can I photograph it?
Yeah.
You do. So that sort of couple of minutes with the surgeon.
The good thing is,
You can also, sorry, but you can also, correct me if I'm wrong here, turn around and say, particularly what you're just saying, Maggie, do you do one that's smaller? Well, I'm not sure that whether we do, but I'll find out for you and get back to you.
Well, that's absolutely right. I mean, I always think you don't beat around a bush or try and answer something that you can't. Like, I'm not entirely sure, to be honest, but I'll find out for you. You know.
Yeah.
And, you know, everyone, whether it's a surgeon, whether it's a nurse, will turn around and understand that. You know.
Yeah.
Because you can get them an answer if you can't provide it there and then. You know.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think the surgeon was just probably being, you know, nice to me, because it transpired he'd already spoken to Will about these things, and I think he was just trying to make conversation. I probably looked like a scared rabbit in headlights. It was my first time in theatre, and he was just trying to make some sort of, you know, connection. But I'm over that now.
You did have those ears on though, which was a bit funny.
Oh, that little tail. I didn't tell anybody. But, you know, that's that won't happen again. I know it won't, because I'm prepared now. So yeah, it's good. Good to be a bit scared sometimes.
It's great. It's really good advice, Alan, Barry. Really good advice. Just kind of always be honest and just say, yeah, I'm not sure right now, but I'll absolutely find out and come back to you as soon as possible. What's the best way to get hold of you? You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Should I call you? Because I'll come back to you. Or is there another member of the team you'd rather I spoke to about this? And I'll come back with the information. So just
because Justin, there's nothing they hate more than bull.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think on that note as well, with that reflection from Maggie, she's developing her, knowledge of the Blink portfolio of products, because she didn't know that product. That then will lead her to go and research and look into why she didn't know it, and go back to the surgeon with the answer. So it then feeds into further development in terms of product knowledge, etc.
Yeah.
I think as well is, I mean, I was out with Maggie earlier. I don't know, was it last week when we was down, when we went down to Hereford, though, as an example. We're talking to the surgeon about a product, the anterior chamber product. And I knew at the point that he was getting to was, to a degree, we'd already identified we're not expert in this product, and it's rare, it's a low volume product, but it's quite technical. So when we got to that point, it was almost, yeah, this is, as I've imparted almost as much knowledge as I have around the product in my head. And at that point, it was, would it be useful if we sent you some videos of the product in use?
Yeah.
Again,
Great.
that was linking the fact that other people are using this. They're doing videos of it, peer-to-peer clinician talking about the use of the product. And he was like, that would be absolutely great. That's fine. And if you've got any questions when you've watched that, come back to us.
Yeah, great idea. That is really great. You've got those assets as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
YouTube's great.
Very useful. Very useful. Yeah, that's a really nice approach. Yeah, good. And what about from a personal development perspective, plans kind of, because I guess there's a piece around, you know, what are the areas of your own personal continuing development? Start to think about that.
I think you've got to acknowledge the areas. I mean, no one's perfect, and I think the first thing to do is acknowledgement, and obviously, like I said, reflection on where you think you can improve. And I think acknowledgement of I suppose weaknesses is how we improve, isn't it?
Yeah. As well, I'm very much on, as we're going through the process, is structure. Is to understand the structure of the call that you're having, and the more that you get into that rhythm, and you're using the kind of almost what we've discussed, you build that structure into how you actually conduct your meetings. That keeps things a lot more manageable, and it keeps you on track.
I think it is making sure that, I mean, I'm probably guilty of it, I think we all are, because we have busy roles in terms of what we do on a day-to-day basis, and what we sell is having that time to take a step, to give yourself that half day or an hour if you need, to make sure you've done everything you've done, your diary's up to date, everything that you thought you planned to do that week you have done and you've achieved. And I think we're that busy sometimes, you just get in that process of being busy. But I think Tim told me a few weeks ago, we went to a one-to-one, just remember to take that step back and make sure that you do. And it's exactly right as well. I think you need to do that at times. And where am I? What have I done? What have I achieved this week? Have I done that? Everything I intended to do this week, this month? And I think it's really valuable to make sure you get the time to do that. So
yeah, good reflection, Barry. Yeah, really good reflection. And because that's about you, as yes, it is about completing tasks and making sure you're on top of stuff. It's also about giving you that space you need to reflect on yourself and think about how you're going to continue to develop and improve. It's really great. Thanks, Brian. It's good. I will send you through those two documents. Great. So that if you want to use them, you've got them as options. And take this as an agenda item for your accountability discussion with each other, because it'd be really useful. You can start to share with each other what you're working on, how that's going for you, and that kind of almost sometimes will give you the inspiration you need to maintain the momentum yourself. Good. Any other final thoughts on reflection or personal development? Okay, good. Excellent. Right. Final things then. We've got in our last 10 minutes. Blimey. Where does the afternoon go? Can you believe that? It's been nearly 3 hours. Right. Okay. These are all of the actions that we've had throughout our program. I'm going to put these into an email and send them to you, so you've got them as a list. So this is everything we covered as part of our 4 different workshops. So I'll send those to you. I'll encourage you to just regroup on your key takeaways. Think about what are the key actions for you today beyond the previous workshops, but today as a building blocks. I would love for you to forget it says between the workshops, beyond the workshops, think about how you stay connected with your one other person, just so that you keep this momentum around personal development and application of the program. Tim will obviously be working with you on that as your manager anyway, but as we said, right, this point here, it's about peer-to-peer accountability, so that you don't need someone else checking up on you. You're proactively driving it yourself. Real, improvement in self-belief and self-confidence comes when you do that yourselves. And we talked about these things. What are your ongoing actions beyond the workshops? How will you help each other continue to develop and grow and implement this content? And how often might you review? You might move it to kind of, I don't know, every couple of weeks or monthly or whatever you decide is right for you and your accountability partner. In terms of continuing development, so there is a book floating in there. It's not supposed to just float there on its own. I'm going to animate this slide. I have a program called the Online Sales Mastery Program. It's linked to the book. You've obviously got the scorecard. I'm going to come back to you on the scorecard. A month from now, Tim and I will check in and we'll come back to you and say, right, let's retake the scorecard. You've obviously got copies of the book. But this sales mastery program is everything we've covered in an online program, okay? And it's modular. So it's 10 to 15 minutes per module, and there are 38 modules, right? I will register you all in the back end of that program. So you've got access to all these modules as well as our workshops. You'll have this for free. This is on me. And if there's anything, you kind of think, oh, I'd just like to look at that one bit on questioning, rather than have to go back, which of our programs was it? You can go straight into this portal and you'll see all 38 modules listed in bite-sized chunks, and you can just watch a quick video of me talking through it. Okay, so it just gives you access to kind of recap on the content in a way that's a little bit more manageable for you. So, and when we finish today, I'm going to put all your emails into the system. You will then receive an email to say you've been registered on the Sales Mastery Program. If you click that link, it will take you in, and I'm not going to set you up with a password. So if you click reset password, yeah, you'll get another email that then gives you a login. You set your password up and you're good to go. So it's all dead simple. It's all there for you. Okay. So that's quite straightforward, but I'll register you in the back end. You'll get an email, click on the link, reset your password, set a password that you want, and that becomes your login. And then you've got access to that from here on. Okay. Any questions, just reach out to me and I'll help you out, but it should be really straightforward. Okay. That concludes our program with 6 minutes to spare. So we have an option. If there's any feedback, any questions, anything you'd like to ask me before we close, then I'm an open book. Maggie, yes.
Okay, so I'd like to know, please, how you get somebody to engage with you that really doesn't want to engage with you.
Go on, tell me more.
If I can explain a little bit more. So obviously at the beginning of my time with Blink, Will introduced me to the top accounts, basically. One of which is not too far away, good relationship with Blink, apparently. I'm talking about Kidderminster. I've emailed, I've been polite, I've been friendly, I've done everything I can to get through the door, and she's not responding to my emails. So the email address is correct. I'm not putting a red receipt on, but I'm putting a delivery receipt on, so I know it's been delivered.
Yeah.
I've included Will in the emails. I haven't included Will in the emails. Will's email today, just to see whether it's just me. So what's my next step? Because, you know, it's not like I'm not seasoned. It's not like I don't know what I'm doing, but she's a good account. So I need to do these engagements with her.
What's your reason for connecting with her, Maggie?
Make sure everything's okay.
I think the main reason is we've got we do some IVT business there, and in September they're renewing the contract. So what I advised Maggie to do was, given the importance, she's the decision maker, she's the lead nurse practitioner. I've explained to Maggie the importance of building rapport with her and seeing her again since I introduced her to her. So that just gives you a bit of background as to why Maggie's trying to sort of get in touch with her.
What was the first meeting like? How was the engagement in the handover meeting?
It was well. I think it was. We met Helen in a small sort of her office in Kidderminster. I think she was a bit miffed that I was leaving. I think that was always a little bit. I mean, me and her got on well. However, I do think the interaction went well. I think Maggie and her were talking about, I think, about dogs and getting on and introduced. So it went well. So I don't think from that point of view it was a good interaction to begin with.
I did a good follow-up email the same day.
Yeah.
A professional email. But
What, so,
just
so what,
nothing
so
back.
you've been trying to see her afterwards, Maggie. What have you positioned with her in terms of being able to see her? What have you said to her is the reason you want to see it?
So to make sure everything's running smoothly with the account. Suggested days, not just one day, give us some options. If that option isn't suitable, please come back with another option. I'll do my best to accommodate you.
So, sorry, let me pause you, Maggie. Go back to the reason why. What's in it for her?
There's not really anything in it for her.
That's why she hasn't responded. What could be in it for her?
Nice. Can I say something, Justin?
Please do, Alan. Yeah, please do, Alan. Yeah.
I think in terms of what Will said, just to help you, Maggie, well, this is what I would do if it was me, is, you know, I would send her an email thanking you for your first meeting. Glad to meet you, etc., etc. However, I would like to come back and have another meeting with you to discuss the future plans for the new contract for the IVT pack that I gather is coming up in September. See if we can help you any more, to see if you're looking at any changes. Is everything in the pack that you require, etc., etc.
Yeah. No, I've done a similar thing with the procurement manager.
No
And
response. So let's unpack it, right? So we're going to run past 5 o'clock. I'm okay with that. Are you guys okay with that?
Yeah.
If anyone's got a hard stop at 5 and needs to go, you're welcome to go. Okay.
I've got to drive to North Wales now in a bit, so I just want to hang on to just see what you think.
Yeah, it's cool. So
sorry, guys.
It's all right. No, it's good. It's good. This is a big part of applying the program. Right. Let's go right back to the start. Let's go right back to the beginning. You've established rapport because Will's given you a handover. You've got some relationship. There's something there, but you've also got a disconnect in that relationship because she might be feeling a little bit bruised because she had this great relationship with the existing person, and now she's got someone. And Maggie, don't take this the wrong way. She's got someone that's not been in the industry before. I've never met before. She's learning the ropes, and I might even have to spend some time teaching her some stuff that I don't want to do. Right? That's where she is in her mind.
Yeah.
Until you understand the mind of your customer, you can't influence it.
Yeah.
Right. So what we need to understand, what does she need to hear so that she goes, actually, this relationship has value for me. Actually, this relationship has value for me, and I should see this person. We should also combine that with complete empathy that she's run off her feet. She's absolutely mad busy. She's got all sorts of demands coming on her. She's got this tender coming up, this process coming up, and she's got reps coming out of the woodwork trying to sell their packs or whatever it is to her.
Just to add a bit of it, I don't think Helen would be aware of the tendering exercise at the moment because it's more a very early days, and I don't even think procurement have begin to approach her. This was very early discussion, so just to sort of put context, I don't think Helen would be aware at the moment that there is a tender happening.
Okay.
But
okay.
So that's sort of, yeah, because I know she's not. So because Jackie's not mentioned it to her yet. So just sort of adding that just so you can formulate a proper response, basically.
Sure, because I won't if it was me, I wouldn't mention the tender.
No, that's what I mean. I wouldn't know. No.
Whether she knew about it or not.
No, yeah, it's not worth. It's irrelevant.
But in terms of understanding where she is in her mind, all this stuff going on, right, in her world, and COVID numbers are starting to rise. So she'll be having some pressure there. There'll be all this stuff going on, right? So to put it in context, and the context is, don't take it personally. This isn't personal, right? This is about her being busy, and it's about us having to find a way to cut through the noise. Cut through the noise. Well, remember session 1?
Yeah.
The world's bloody changed, right?
Yeah.
Cut through the noise. So what are the messages we should be giving to Helen so that it's completely focused on her and her alone? Remember, there are 3 principles, right?
Yeah.
customer only, right? Outcome focused. What's the outcome we want to help her achieve? And think about leveraging the power of other relationship, power of peers. So what might work as a cut-through message is something like, how long have you been with the company now, Maggie?
Nearly 3 months.
Okay. Hi, Helen. Great to see you at our previous meeting. I know I've messaged you a few times, and I appreciate just how much must be going on for you. Right?
Yeah.
Appreciate how much must be going on for you. I'm now 3 months in, met some incredible customers, had actually got some really interesting examples of what other customers are doing to build out X, Y, and Z, right? So what's Helen's role?
She's the lead nurse practitioner for Worcestershire. So she leads the IVT clinic for Worcester, Kidderminster, and Redditch. Okay.
Because what we want to do is say, we want to do one of two things, right? We're either going to bring her some insight around things that are happening in her trust that she might not be close enough to the ground to have found out for herself, right? So we've been working in the hospitals and the trust. We've got some insights that we think might be interesting in your role as, lead nurse, and might help you in your position. Cut through message. Maggie's got some information that I probably don't know about my own organization that could be useful. Right? Note, important note, you must have the information. Don't just go winging it. Right? Second option is I've met some really interesting other customers, and one of the things that we're doing as an organization, sharing some best practices with customers that are strategically partnered with us so that we can help them in their own practice. Right? There's some things we're learning from other customers that we think could be useful for you. Again, you have to have some stuff you can share, right? But one of those types of messages, so I'm coming to give you some information that should be valuable for you in your role in the trust and help you do something you can't or aren't doing today. And I'm going to be deliberately vague about it so that you say to me, that sounds interesting, Maggie, when should we meet? And that will cut, I'm 99% sure that will cut through.
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Thank you. Yeah, it does make sense.
And I think on that, Maggie, I've got some stuff for IVT injectors, which is some new products me and Barry's been working on, which we can say we've got something new regarding sharp safety on IVT. Now, it could be that they get it and go, that's not for us, but it's something new that we're introducing. The other thing sometimes on these folks, I know it's like in the NHS, is understanding within that your group within the trust who you get to speak to. It's just validate that she's still there, because NHS, it's not that well managed at times. People go off on long-term sick and don't put an out of office on their emails. All of those things.
Jackie disappeared.
Yeah. So people in this industry, in this customer base, people do have a habit of disappearing at times.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do.
And I think we've said it, Maggie. I really wouldn't take it personal. It's nothing. No. It's just like the chances are we'll say all this, and as sod's law, you'll probably get a response Monday.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You know what I mean? I just think bear with it. It's nothing personal. I've seen the emails you've sent. You've got. They said when you met her, you were professional. You were. They said you responsive. You got on. The email you sent was fantastic. So from your point of view, I don't think, like you said, you could have done much more. I think give it another week, and we'll work together. We'll get in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
His final point that I think is important consideration, as well as not taking it personally, always think the best of the other person. So they might be overloaded at the moment. They might have some personal issues. They might have something going on. There'll be whatever it is. Always assume there is a genuine reason they haven't come back to you, so that when you reconnect, you always go into that relationship with that belief, so you don't then have any resentment. Because any of that resentment, remember we talked about the communication mix, it will project out of you if you've got it. So always think the best of the other person, because if you always think the best of them and you are right, yeah, you've done the right thing. They respect it. You respect it. If you've always thought that and they were in the wrong and actually they were avoiding you, but you've now re-engaged them, they feel like they owe you one. So there's no downside.
Yeah.
There's no downside to thinking the best of other people all the time. Always think the best of the other person, especially when they're your customer.
Yeah.
Is that all right? Is that useful, maybe?
Thank you. Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you.
You got this. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. Guys, anything else? Anybody else got something we can solve for them?
No, I just think it's
Long
been
list.
fantastic, Justin. Thank you for everything over the
Yeah,
last.
brilliant.
Yeah,
Really
thank you
good.
very much.
Yeah,
Cheers,
same.
Jamie.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
You've,
guys.
you've cured my coronavirus now. I feel better.
Magic.
Cure for COVID as well.
You've
Can I
cured
have
the
that
cure
as a
for COVID.
Can I have that as a testimonial, please?
You can do, yeah. I had COVID before this call. I feel refreshed now.
This is why it's cure for COVID.
That's the next book, How I Cured COVID.
That could be a bestseller.
I love it. I love it. Guys, before we finish, just to say, I've really enjoyed our time together. Thanks so much for your engagement. I know, I'm doing some work here and working as a team, but it makes it so much more enjoyable when you guys lean in, you're completely engaged, you follow up between the workshops. I know you should be making Tim feel very proud right now, and I feel delighted to have worked with you so far, and hopefully we'll do some more in the future. So thank you all so much.
No, thank you.
Great pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Closing words. It's just the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yeah, this is the beginning of your journey and your self-development. So really, really great. I will be in touch. Tim and I are going to hook up anyway to do a review of the program. We'll be in touch in about a month with the scorecards kind of retake, and then we'll work out next steps from there. Guys, have a wonderful summer. Thanks so much.
And you.
And,
Thanks so much.
Likewise.
Good luck. See
Take
you
care,
soon.
Justin.
Take care, Justin. Take care, all.
Yeah.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
See you. Bye.